Welcome to the No Quit Living podcast, where we aim to inspire and motivate people to never give up on themselves or their dreams. We will chat with highly successful people from all walks of life and discuss what motivates and drives them to successfully attack life head on and never give up. Welcome to episode number 21 of the No Quit Living podcast. I'm your host, Christopher J. Worth, and today's theme of the day is never give up. Our quote of the day comes to us from Hubert H. Humphrey: never give in and never give up. This episode of the No Quit Living podcast is brought to you by the I3 Initiative. In today's society, it is so easy to get caught up in the drama, negativity, and uncertainty in the universe we are a part of. Against those challenges, we are committed to make the world a better place through improvement, impact, and integrity. You are invited to join our mission and learn more about our book club, membership, live events, and mastermind at i3initiative.com. That's the letter I, the number 3, initiative.com. Today's guest is filled with passion, and I hope you truly enjoy today's episode. There were many times this gentleman could have given up in life, but he didn't. He kept putting one foot in front of the other, and he hasn't stopped since. In addition to being one of the most successful real estate professionals in the industry, he is also a best-selling author and one of the most in-demand professional speakers when it comes to referrals, generosity, marketing, and relationship building. I'm excited to bring you today's episode and to introduce Michael J. Maher. With the negativity in the media today, I wanted to ask if you had a personal story you could share with our audience about perseverance, or perhaps a challenging time that tested you, but you kept on going and never quit.
Well, that's a great question, and it depends on how long you have. There's been so many trying times. I think anytime you're pursuing big goals, you're going to have some type of dips or troughs or lower times in your life. And I have to tell you, one of the best stories is a story that is actually about athletics, but really relates to all things business and life. And it's a story about armed guards, a bloody sock or two, a big giant yellow school bus, and Drew Carey, and a bridge, right? Believe it or not, all of those are in the story. And it began in April of 2011, and I had a friend of mine who invited me to run a marathon called the Marine Corps Marathon. And it was that October in D.C. And some years before, James's mother, Vicky, had gotten brain cancer, unfortunately, at a pretty young age, and ended up passing away from it. And I know that brain cancer research was near and dear to James's heart, and my father had passed away from cancer as well. So it was also an opportunity, and the way he got me is, you know what, this is going to be a great way to raise some money for a charity. Right, we'll raise it for brain research, and we'll also raise it for the American Cancer Society. So I said, I'm in. Well, when you sign up for a marathon, it sounds like it's so much easier to sign up for it than run it, right? So, I could have just written him a check, but I believe in doing things for charity instead of just, financing charity. And I'd do anything for James. So I just said, you know what? And also I needed to get in shape. So it was like, okay, this is kind of the incentive I need to get in shape. Unfortunately, I didn't know anything about marathons, right? And I soon discovered that I wasn't just running a marathon. I was running the Marine Corps Marathon, which is one of the hardest marathons in the United States, with the toughest last 2 miles of any marathon in the country. And so, like a lot of people who do a marathon, it's like, even though I had 6 months to prepare for the race, and even though I knew I should be training, life and work got in the way, right? And all at once, October was kind of staring me in the face, and I was nowhere near ready to run 26 miles. So, it's in September. I'm looking at October and a marathon the next month. So what do? It's like, oh, there's a Kansas City half marathon that is in a week. I think I'll to prepare for the marathon, I'll just go do the half marathon. Right. So 2 weeks before the marathon, I run a half marathon with very little to no training. This was obviously not the best strategy in the world. I was so sore from the half marathon that I could not run for the next 2 weeks. So it was like, oh gosh, the half marathon was pretty tough. What's the marathon going to be like? And so I have to tell you that, I mean, I don't know how long we want to make the story or whatever, but the first thing is I had a Gen DC. I run generosity generation events around the country, national events that we do regionally and locally. And I had a Gen DC event that we actually planned for the Thursday before the marathon, which was going to take place on Saturday. And during that Gen DC, James was one of my panelists. He's one of the top realtors in the country and also a member of what we do. And I was like, I was ready to bow out of the marathon, right? And then in front of the 350 people we had at this event, he goes, and I'm so excited for Maher. He's running a marathon this weekend with us, and you know, I can't wait. He's raised a lot of great money, and now it's his time for the run, right? And of course, the other part of the commitment is I had committed to a certain dollar amount for every mile I ran. Hey, no pressure at all, right? So I go to register on, so that Thursday, he said, you know, and not only that, Michael, I forgot to tell you, but, you know, one of the things that's a part of the Marine Corps Marathon is that you have to beat the bridge. And I'm like, beat the bridge? What does that mean? He goes, yeah. There is a bridge at 14th and Washington Bridge at 14th, that if you don't get there by a certain time, they have to raise the bridge. And if you haven't beaten the bridge, if you haven't gotten to the bridge by that time, they put you on a slacker bus and they bus you to the finish line, and you don't get credit for a finish, and you don't get your medal. And the opening ceremonies begin, and they do all these great things. And comedian Drew Carey takes the stage to welcome everyone. And it seems, you know, Drew is a former Marine, and he's going to be the honorary first runner of the Marine Corps Marathon. And he's pumping everybody up and saying, you know, how about you guys? You ready to run? And secretly I'm thinking, beat the bridge. I'm not ready to run. So he gets done announcing, to tell you about where I'm at in the line of 35,000 runners. Drew comes off stage and stands right next to me. So he's the honorary first runner, and I'm standing next to him. So I'm literally the second runner. Now, when you think of Drew Carey, you're thinking 260 or 270 when he was heavier, but this was not the Drew Carey show, Drew Carey. This was The Price is Right, Drew Carey, right? He weighed about 150, 160 pounds. And I go, wow, you look fantastic, man. And he turns around at me and goes, wow, you look overdressed, man. and it's like, then the starting gun goes off and we bust out of the gate. And at first, you know how it is. You're running and it's all the excitement and the people are cheering and you feel great. And, you know, I'm running in my triple layers of thermal sweats and my stocking cap, and these professional runners are taking off. And I knew instinctively, I'm just like, I'm starting out way too fast for a marathon, you know? And Drew's right next to me as we're running. He said, we should probably slow down now because all these guys are going to run at this pace for like the whole race. And I'm like, okay. And I'm already feeling the pinched nerve in my back starting to tighten. And the whole, oh, I love to be running had worn off after about 200 steps. But here's the thing. I get to mile 10 and I hear a go daddy. And I recognize my son Max's voice. You know, and I kind of stumble up to Max and Sherry, and I can tell by her expression she was really worried about me. I must have not looked very good, you know, and I was just like, it's like, what do you think I should do, you know? And she goes, I'm not going to answer that, you know, I make it happen. And I'm like, hey, listen, I don't think I'm going to beat the bridge. And that jerked me, right? I mean, it's just like it sucks I hate losing more than I enjoy winning, right? Now I expect to win. So when I lose or fail, it's a crusher. So to say that out loud to her was heartbreaking, right? And it was just like I don't know if I'm gonna be able to make this. And I just kept going, right? I just kept going. Mile 16 comes, and this is where I run into Max and Sherry again. And Max is like, go daddy. Like he wants to run with me. So he starts to run with me, which is inspiring, but I had to stop. And I was talking to her, and she was genuinely worried about me. And at this point, she wasn't saying, you can do it, or you've always completed your thing. She was more worried. And I took my shoes off, and both my socks were bloody, because what had happened is I got the massage the night before. I took a shower after the massage, and I took a shower in the morning, but I must not have done a good job of getting the oil off my toes. So my toes were rubbing up against each other and sliding in the shoes a little bit, to the point where, like, that my toes were just bleeding, blisters all over, right? And so it's just like mile 16. It was a really big, like, do I keep going? Am I an idiot to continue, right? Is my pride going to kill me here? And I didn't want that to happen. So I just really, I'm almost in tears. I'm almost broken down. But there my little son is looking up to me with those bright blue eyes, just like, Daddy, I'll see you at the finish line, right? And I'm like, Sherry, do you think you could make 20? I don't know if I'm going to, can I just meet you at the bridge, because I don't think I'm going to beat the bridge. And Sherry goes, Michael, I've been carrying Max all day. The push stroller, the tire blew out. I'm going to the finish line. I'll meet you there. However you get there. If you're on the bus, you're on the bus. If you make it, you make it. So I had 4 miles to go to beat the bridge, and I'm in full body breakdown. So I turn my socks inside out. I pull my socks on, tie my shoes tight, and I just keep going. I keep moving, and I'm shuffling. It's an embarrassing old man shuffle, right? And then I hobble past the crowds at the National Mall, and to my right, I see them. Next to me is a police car, and then another police car, and then another, and there were 6 police cars in a row. No lights, no sirens, just moving past. And Chris, that's when I saw it. A giant yellow school bus. And it wasn't just a school bus that said USD 200 on the side. Chris, it said the Slacker bus on the side of it. Right on the side of it. And it's headed to the bridge. And then, here's what's amazing. Then there was the next Slacker bus. And some of these buses already had people in them, right? People had just said, hey, I'm not going to make it, put me on, right? And then another Slacker bus and another one. And there were several of these Slacker buses in a row. And I turn the corner and it says mile 19. I've got 1 mile to pass the buses and the police escort, or my day is done. And what's funny is the DC people know this. So thousands of people line each side of the road on the way to the bridge. And they're all cheering, beat the bridge, beat the bridge. There's even a guy with a boombox who's playing the Chariots of Fire theme music. Remember that? Dun, 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 And in the distance, I see a guy holding a giant spinner that says, beat the bridge. And then there's another one beyond him that says, you beat the bridge. And they're tossing the spinner, right? And they're holding it, and something inside of me kicks in. I'm up on my toes, and I'm running. I'm literally like running. I'm sure some people would call it like fast shuffling, but for me, it was a sprint at the time. We're talking mile 19. I'm totally out of breath. I almost fall twice. I can barely look up to see the man holding the giant spinner who is looking at me worried, right? But I keep going. And eventually I get right to the guy who has the giant spinner that says, you beat the bridge. And he says, you've got it. You beat the bridge. And I look up, and there it is. I step onto the Washington Bridge, and then I stop. I literally stop in the middle of the race, nearly falling down with exhaustion. My legs are quivering, and I'm done it. I'm walking through the finish funnel, is what they call it. And a Marine steps up and says, congratulations, and drapes a gigantic, shiny medal over my neck. And, Chris, in business, especially in real estate, they give us trophies for almost anything. And so I've got, 2 or 3 walls full of trophies. But of all the awards in all my trophy cases, the one I'm most proud of is the one that Marine gave me at the end of the Marine Corps Marathon, because finishing that race was the hardest thing I've ever done. And 9,000 people did not finish the marathon that day. And of course, out of the 27,000 who did, more than 26,000 of them had the distinction of passing me, right? But I finished it. And even today, thinking and talking about that race gets me emotional because I had never overcome such mental and physical challenges in my life. And I've repeatedly asked, why did I do it? Why did I endure so much to complete the race? Why didn't I just quit? Was I being stupid? And I'm not certain I'll ever be able to answer that like completely, right? But here's what I think kept me going. It's when we go through times of pain and difficulty and struggle in our lives, times where we just want to give up. But it's in those moments that we have to keep going. We have to keep putting one foot in front of the other, no matter what. No matter what, we have to beat the bridge, whatever bridge that is, because that's where we'll find the person we truly want to be is on the bridge or on the other side of the bridge. There's always a bridge, right, to the next comfort zone, to the next thing in our life. And it's just amazing. And I'll tell you one last point on this that means a lot to me is we were asked by the second grade teacher, Max's second grade teacher, to ask him some questions. But basically one of the questions was, what does your mom always tell you, right? And Max's reply was, she always says, I love you, right? Sherry's always telling Max that, I love you, right? And the next question was, what did your dad always say? And of course, I'm leaning forward with what this 8-year-old's going to say, right? And he said, Daddy always says, never give up. And I'm going to be honest with you, Chris, I don't remember ever saying those exact words to Max. But somehow, maybe from the stories or maybe from seeing my medal from the race or being there when I did it, he sees me as someone who never gives up. And knowing that makes me feel blessed. And that's the power of all this. That's my, never quit story.
That's quite a story. And I think it talks a lot about you and the person and indirectly and directly, your son Max clearly was motivated, I'm sure, not just from that, but those are the words he says and shares with his teachers. Daddy always says, never give up. Obviously, you didn't, as you mentioned, you didn't say those specific words. You don't remember saying those specific words. But I think as a parent, there are so many different times when you can indirectly say those words. And obviously, it's had such a positive impact on Max. So the question I have for you is I wanted to know, I'll be in your town next week. If we could just maybe do a quick 26.2 mile jog, if you're open for
it. Chris, you can ask me to do a lot of things. I'll do a lot of things for love, but I won't do that. That's not happening. No, my marathon days are behind me.
Hey, but you got one and done, so it's more than a lot of people. But many of our listeners happen to be into personal development. I was curious if you have a favorite book or if you've read something recently that you'd like to share with our audience.
Well, I have to tell you, Chris, I've read over 2,500 business books. I'm a voracious reader. In fact, many would call me the most voracious reader they know. I read 3 to 4 books a week. I have a reading time in the morning and a reading time at night before I go to bed. So, even though it's a little time, it tends to add up over time, right? So it's kind of like the marathon story. It's one step at a time. If you read, a little bit each day, all of a sudden you're burrowing through books. Some of the books that have had the greatest impact on me, one is The Greatest Salesperson in the World by Og Mandino, right? Which some would consider old school, but I recommend anyone to revisit that because it was just so powerful, written in allegory form, and yet the scrolls within there are just really, really powerful. And it was one of the first personal development books I've read. Persuasion, which is by Dr. Robert Cialdini, who used to teach at the Arizona State University. Now he does a lot of speaking. He also authored probably one of the greatest books ever, which is Influence, The Psychology of Persuasion. But Persuasion takes his research to the next level. And then Adam Grant wrote Give and Take, which is a fantastic book. And actually, it's a lot of empirical evidence, basically research and other people who have experienced what I call the generosity generation. In 7L, I write about the generosity generation and how the consumer has changed to They're no longer find me, sell me, right? Now it's hear me, help me. And the consumer has changed. So we need to change our sales approach, which is everything that we teach in the generosity generation and within the 7L system is this business based on love, generosity, and appreciation that's not just kinder and gentler, but it's actually more productive. And it's also better for your lifelong legacy. And give and take is kind of like, it's like that's the research, and then 7L is like, okay, how do we put it into play? Here's the system. So that's a good book too. So do you have a favorite on self-improvement? Or I mean, it's like there's so many great ones. How do you pick one, right?
Yeah, that's a loaded question, and you're not allowed to ask questions. So no, I don't have a favorite book, and I've to your comment, I also am a voracious reader myself. Last year I read 99 books, and I'm always looking at different things. But it's funny for me is I reread a lot of different books based on different points in the year or my life, but I don't have a favorite one specific book. But in regards to one of my favorites happens to be your book, The 7 Levels of Communication. And I have to tell you that book had a very significant positive impact on my business. And as a result, I've actually gifted it, I think, 11 or 12 different times. And ironically, the guest on our episode number 9, Craig Oshrin, who happens to be a very successful realtor, he recommended your book actually to our audience. And I was curious, where did that book originate from, or was it the result of your successful career and all the things you learned?
Yeah, great question. Thank you. I'll tell you, and I don't know if you know, we just got honored by Zillow. Did a research project with all the realtors and came up with the top 15 books every realtor should read. And number 1 was 7L.
Oh, wow.
So,
that is awesome.
Talk about an honor. And there's so many great books out there. And I mean, the E-Myth was mentioned and some other books were mentioned. And to be mentioned number 1. And number 2 was actually a book I co-authored, which was The Miracle Morning for Real Estate Agents. And to have those be 1 and 2, I mean, I nearly fell out of my chair when I saw the blog post. So, and you and Craig and others are the ones who are making that possible and happen, because we're not doing any marketing for 7L. It's all word of mouth and referral based, and great people like you who influence others. And I'm very appreciative of that. And the book, it was me taking the best of all of those self-improvement books and business books and relationship and referral books, and meshing them into a system for sales, right? To generate referrals. I just put 100% of my effort into generating referrals. What does that look like? And so that's what it was. Is just I saw the gap in the market was just there's a lot of books that talk about getting referrals or relationship selling and maybe about building relationship, but there's a gap where my subtitle of the book is Go from Relationships to Referrals. And everybody has relationships, but they're not getting referrals from them. So the 7L system is how do we bridge that gap? Here we are talking about beating the bridge again. How do we bridge that gap from the relationship to the referrals? And honestly, Chris, I was like a lot of people who need to write a book. I was telling people I was going to write a book, but I hadn't even written a word yet. And then on December 18th, 2007, it was a very memorable day, week before Christmas, I actually flatlined. I actually had surgery a few days before on my knee, and for some reason I was out of breath and had some issues. Well, it ended up at 7 o'clock in the morning on December 18th, I flatlined. I had 7 blood clots. I had 3 in each lung and 1 that passed through my heart. Killed me for 37 seconds, and luckily I was in the hospital. They resuscitated me. They wheeled me down. They put in a temporary pacemaker and did a lot of pretty intricate tests and checks, and got me a little pacemaker to make sure that didn't happen again. And in ICU that night, I outlined 7L, because one of the thoughts I had was this great system, the system I'm helping a lot of people with, just about died with me in my head. And that's when I had to get it out. And that literally the book started on December 8th, 2007.
Well, I did not know the backstory in regards to that. That's quite a story. Michael, I was curious, do you have a specific morning or daily ritual that you feel has helped or led to both your professional and personal success?
Wow. So how long do we have on I mean, I am a man of rituals, right? In 7L, I talk about the 4 enriching rituals. So yes, I have a very strict morning ritual. I have a very strict nightly ritual. I have a very strict Sunday night ritual, and I have a very strict what I call pre-leave ritual or landing ritual for the end of the day before I close up shop. I work out of a very nice office out of my home, and so when I close that door, the day is done. So, the morning ritual you can read about in the Miracle Morning for real estate agents, right? Which isn't just for real estate agents like all my books. I throw it in that genre because that's my platform, but they're really universal. And it's, the morning ritual is the acronym SAVERS, which I co-authored with Hal Elrod. And it's the S is for silence, right? Have some silent time. The A is for affirmations and appreciations, right? Which is I appreciate and I am, and just completing that sentence. And then the V is visualization. The E is exercise. The R is reading, and that's where I was talking about the reading time in the morning. And then the S is for scribing or scribbling, which essentially means journaling, which that's what I do in the morning. And then the nightly ritual, that I put the Sunday night ritual and the nightly ritual together. And the Sunday night ritual is the acronym SWEET, right? And the Sunday night ritual is done about 7 o'clock on Sunday night. And it's sweet. I look at my schedule, that's the S. I look at the weather for the week, that's the W. I look at my eating plan for the week and what we're going to do for meals. And then I look at my exercise plan for the week. I work out 3 days a week, the exercise plan for the week. And then the T is I tie it all together. So I organize my outfits and the clothes I need for the entire week. So Monday through Saturday, you can see it in my closet, ready to go. And also my wife does this, and also Max, my son, organizes his clothes, and then Sherry organizes his meals for the entire week on Sunday night. So we don't have to think about that. We don't have to make any decisions. We try to avoid suffering from decision fatigue, right? The more decisions you make, the less better decisions you make, right? So you want to make few decisions, good decisions. And then the nightly ritual is the acronym DREAMS, right? Which this happens for us at about 9 o'clock. The D is dim time. So dim time means you dim the lights and you turn off technology, right? So the phones, the iPads, the computers, the TVs are off at 9 o'clock in our house. Now, my wife really wanted 8:30. My son really wanted 9:30, and I didn't care, so we went with 9 o'clock. And then we also turned down the temperature a little bit on the thermostat because it's better to sleep a little colder than warmer. And then the R is read. So we dim all the lights, we turn on our reading lights, and if you walked into our house at 9:10, you would see my son reading in his room. You would see me and my wife reading in our room. And then the E is exercise, but it's light exercise. It's actually stretching or yoga, whatever you want to call it, but it's just a gentle stretch to let your body start to relax a little bit. And then the A is for appreciations. You're just going to look at your day and either write 5 I appreciations, or you can just look back at your day and say, what should you celebrate from the day? Because what people typically do at night is they worry, right? They think about what didn't get done, or they think about the difficult client. What we really need to do is celebrate our day and appreciate our efforts, and that's the A. And then M is for meditate. And meditation, we have a pre-sleep meditation that will help you sleep better, but bottom line is just breathing, through your nose and out through your mouth, and just letting your body relax. And then the S is for sleep, and that is turn off the lights, go to sleep. And many times people don't even get to the E before they're asleep once they start this routine because their body knows what's coming.
That's pretty interesting that you do all that. And I think I'm a creature of habit, and I think people's habits to dictate their life in the next day. And obviously you've got this under a pattern. I think that's pretty interesting that you have the whole family doing it. I'm definitely gonna have to tell tell my wife about some of these things, and maybe she'll buy into some of them.
Yep. Well, I'm a firm believer. I believe, I mean, I come from an extremely impoverished background, right? My dad taught school for $2,500 a year, and my mom stayed home with 5 kids. We lived in, substantial, or not substandard living quarters, if you will, for a long time. And I truly believe what broke me out of that is the thought of ritual and the fact that you can improve yourself with just making little improvements each day. And, I was on stage in front of 10,000 people at an event where I was at. It's like, the speaker knew me very well and said, listen, you are the most ritualized and systematized and structured person that I've ever met. But here's the deal. I'm going to take away all of the structure, all of your rituals. I'm going to take all of that away, put you on an island or put you in a new environment, and you can only fight for one habit. You only get one habit, and that's the one that you're going to go into your day and into your work day with. What's the habit that you, and it's time blocking. The whole concept of blocking off 30 minutes to an hour to do something completely focused is the most important habit to me, is blocking out that time, no distractions, 100% focus. And that concept has done more for my life than probably any other concept.
No, I think that's so important. And I think if you schedule it on your day and you do block that time out and you consistently stick to it, that's how you become successful. And I think, to your comment about your book being designed for the real estate world, I have to tell you is I've recommended that book to many people, as I mentioned, and gifted it to people that are not in real estate. Some are not even in business, because it talks about habits and rituals and how you do things day in and day out. And like you said, with the marathon component, is one step at a time, and you keep going. So I was curious, who has had the greatest influence in your life?
Jesus, first of all. The entire biblical principles are, Proverbs 11:25 is the centerpiece of our entire business philosophy, right? Which is, a generous one shall be a prosperous one. He who refreshes others shall himself be refreshed. That's the centerpiece of our entire business philosophy. And the next would be Zig Ziglar, who luckily I got to have as a mentor. And in fact, the reason we have an audiobook of 7L to this day is because Zig Ziglar, it's like, your clientele are relators. They go to Automobile University every single day, Michael. You got to get yourself an audio book. So when Zig Ziglar says you need an audiobook, 2 weeks later, you're in Orlando recording your audiobook. And then Howard Brenton, who is a sage within the real estate world, was always a big mentor for me and really pushed me to speak and train on my system, where what I really thought I was destined to do was sell real estate. So he was always the one pushing me in front of big audiences and pushing me to speak and helping me coach and train, and a big influence in my life. And his, Zig Ziglar's big statement is, you can have everything you want in life if you'll just help enough others get what they want, which is exactly, once again, the philosophy of the 7L system and the generosity generation. Howard Brenton's phrase was, get out of judgment and get into curiosity, right? And so once again, that's a centerpiece of the 7L system and the generosity generation is that, we go into these arrangements knowing that we can learn from everyone. And it's much more about the questions we ask than even the stories that we tell or the sales, things that we tell. It's much more about questions and curiosity and listening and learning and hearing, instead of about what we tell and sell. And then the other one is I've got to mention is my father, right? My book 7L is dedicated to my dad, and my dad had all kinds of crazy cool phrases that he would pour down on us. And one of his was, don't be a horse's rear, seek to be kind, not right. right? And that was I always wanted, I think I always wanted to be right when I was a teenager, and I really learned from him, just, seek to be kind, not right. And putting that whole trying to be right and trying to convince people on the side, and just focusing on loving the other, has been a big influence in my life. I mean, he always said, you know, triumph is just to try with a little more ump. He said things like, Jim Rome's, you're the average of the 5 people you hang out with most. So he had a really good one. Chris, I don't know where we're at on time, so I just keep talking. You just hammer me when we're done. But it's like, he said there's 3 kinds of people in the world. There's champs, there's chimps, and there's chumps. And the chumps are just those people who are negative leaders, right? They want to get in trouble, and they want other people to share in the misery, so they take them down a bad path, right? And it's, you can get caught in that. If you're influential, people will follow you down that negative path, or that bad path, or doing a bad thing. And then the chimps are the ones who don't think at all. They just do what everybody else is doing, right? They're ones that follow the chumps, or they follow the champs. They don't really think about the repercussions. They just want to follow, right? And then the champs are the positive leaders. They're the ones that take people down the positive path and the good path. And we don't want to be a chump. We don't want to be a chimp. We want to be a champ. And I use that story with my son all the time. He has been a chump sometimes. He's been a chimp sometimes, and luckily he's been a champ sometimes. So, that was a very powerful story and lesson I learned from my father.
Father sounds like quite a guy, and he definitely had some great sayings. To take a different turn here, I was curious, if you could have dinner with anyone, dead or alive, who would it be and why?
Well, it's going to be my dad. I mean, because he died at 54 when I was 23 years old, right? So we're talking 20 some years ago. I would love to have dinner with him and catch him up, let him meet Max in person and what we do is we do dinner while we were watching Max play baseball, because I know my dad's watching. But me being able to watch my dad, watching my son play ball would be the greatest joy I could ever experience, that I can't experience. I mean, I'm already a really happy guy, right? It's not a bitter thing. It's just if it could be, that would be an amazing, because my son is gifted in baseball, like a lot of the Mahers. But he's better. I think he's better than any of us that have come before, except maybe my brother Brian. But my son always does something amazing, and I know how much that would fill my dad's heart with joy to see how much joy Max got from baseball, and how much joy I get from watching Max play baseball. So that would be it.
That's the first person that would have a dinner while watching a baseball game we've interviewed. So that is definitely a first, and it would be an awesome thing to watch that. So I wanted to ask you if you were working on anything exciting that you would like to share with our listeners.
Always, I mean, the beauty is we're so demand driven, right? Which means our clientele and our generosity generation say, we'd really like to learn more about this, or we'd really like to get better at this system. And then we design a course around it. The biggest thing is our Gen events. We're on our 55th event in South Florida, and then we will have our 56th event in Boston, and then our 57th event in Indianapolis. And we have events all over the country, and people can go to referco.com, referco.com, or go to Michael J. Maher, Maher's MAHER, .com, michaeljmaher.com, and they can learn more about our events.
No, that's awesome, and I definitely will share that in the show notes. Before we let you go, I wanted to ask if you have some parting words for our audience.
Never give up. Never give up. I think the biggest thing is, especially if somebody's been in real estate or business in 2009, 2010, it was such a punch to the gut to be around in 2009 and 10, especially because a lot of the reason that, business had suffered was not your fault, right? It was just the economy. It was, and the thing is we just have to keep going. I don't mean, some people get quit and stop, confused, right? The key is to stop and think, or to stop and gather, or to stop and evaluate. That is a big part of life and success, is to stop, right? On the marathon, I stopped and switched my bloody socks inside out. I stopped to reflect on the moment when I beat the bridge. And it's not, it's not never stop. You should stop and think, stop and evaluate, but never quit, right? Just keep going, keep persevering, because honestly, that's where the growth occurs, is on the other side of the bridge, on the other side of where we might have quit, right? The 3 feet from gold kind of scenario is, you know what? Just think you're 3 feet from gold. Just keep going those 3 steps to capture the gold. I know it. I mean, it's like I could give so much advice, but the biggest one is, excellence is better than brilliance, right? What's the difference between brilliance and excellence? Well, brilliance is a moment of thought, right? You have a moment of brilliance. It's a great idea or whatever it is. Well, but what is better is excellence. What is excellence? Excellence is brilliance plus resilience, right? So it's the resilience that will give you excellence in life. And excellence is what pays the bills. People come to you for excellence. They don't go to you for brilliance, right? They already think what they have is brilliance. Now they want excellence. And the key here is it's resilience. Keep going. Keep going through the down times. And you know what? Keep going through even during the up times. So that's it. Brilliance plus resilience equals excellence. Keep going.
Keep going. Never quit. I could not agree with that more. And last question I have for you, and I promise it's the easiest one. What is the best way for our listeners to connect with you?
Good question. So the best way, I mean, one of the things we could do if people want to talk to us is we have a free 15-minute strategic, actually now we're doing 30-minute strategic sessions where there's no obligation. It's not a sale. It's literally, we just help people. And you can go to sign up for that. Now we're a month out, sometimes 2 months out. So, if you need immediate help, call 911, right? But if it's one of those where listen, you want to sign up and get some clarity around something, go to callwithcoach.com, CALLWITH, coach, COACH.com, and then 15 and 30-minute strategic session around anything in your business, right? Time management, referrals, sales, advertising, marketing, branding. We have some great branding experts. So that's just part of the Generosity Generation, is that we have this free service where we will help you conquer your challenges and achieve your goals, right? So callwithcoach.com is the best first step.
That's great. And do you have a presence on social media where you'd like people to follow you as well, or?
Yeah. Just go to facebook.com/referral guru. There's 80,000 plus fans or ambassadors or whatever you want to call them out there. And at Referral Guru, it's facebook.com/referral guru. At that page, I share posts, pictures, and videos that you can then share, which will generate referrals, right? That's our objective. It will generate inspiration and it will generate referrals. We have a picture that has been shared 132,000 times, and it has been liked 232,000 times. Yeah, so that gives you an example of the expansion and the breadth and width of what the Generosity Generation is doing.
Well, that is very impressive, and I would definitely recommend our listeners to take a look at that and your Facebook page as well. Listen, Michael, I truly appreciate you spending some of your time with us today. I can't thank you enough, and I definitely look forward to hopefully speaking with you soon. To sum up today's episode and our theme of the day, never give up, Michael J. Maher shared his very personal and motivational story. Whether it was dealing with the early death of his father, running a marathon, or being brought back to life after 37 seconds, Michael never gave up. A man of rituals, it is very easy to see how and why he has been able to succeed in life, especially being after dealt some tough cards early on. In his parting words, Michael shared the importance of never giving up. he emphasized the value in stopping, thinking, reflecting, and evaluating, but you never quit. So the question we have for you today is, are you thinking about quitting? Have you made the decision to quit? Or perhaps you are about to quit? We challenge you not to quit, but to keep on going. Even though you might be faced with what seems like an insurmountable task or challenge, don't let it stop you. Instead, stop, think and reflect, evaluate, but keep on going. Don't quit, and go for your greatness. And lastly, to our listeners, thank you. We truly appreciate your time, and we hope our episodes inspire you to keep on attacking life and never giving up. To quote Dr. Norman Vincent Peale, it's always too early to quit.